Hi everyone, episode 2. Episode 2 of Energized Handicapping. Actually, just energized horse player. Making a paradigm change, leaving the middle of the ocean and getting to land, walking through the fire after 40 years of playing the game we love called horse racing. So it's Tuesday, and I'm talking about the mind of a horse player. So I went out and tried to make a couple of pennies, and I'm 70 years old, so I think most people, when they view you and they see you and they experience you, they start out with a negative because they think, so many things, they use their imagination in a negative way. This guy's not going to be here that long. What can he learn? So on and so on. So, and then it's the type of place where if they're slow, they're just going to tell you to go home. And, you don't get no pay, nothing, and they tell you to go home. And that rejection affects anybody. It always affected me. And what I would do is I would go into my cocoon, which would be, to play the races. I was addicted to handicapping. I loved handicapping. I'd handicap for hours and hours on races. In a day, probably 8 hours. So I was addicted to horse racing information. I try to learn everything, and that was my out. I don't know why. I just felt comfortable doing it, and I did that for 40 years. And looking back at it, I think it was insane. I was insane. I was fucking totally insane. I don't know why, I don't even know how I could stay in there for 40 years. But over the last 10 years, I knew that I was in a place I shouldn't have been. I was addicted to something that I shouldn't have been doing. I wasn't good enough to be able to make any money on it or bring it to a point of joy where, I was having extremely pleasurable experiences. They were just way too few. So because of that, I just enjoyed the process. But the joy stopped at the process because I'm using horse racing information. And after 40 years, I realized horse racing information is just total bullshit. It was just something I believed, and it should have never been believed from the beginning. I mean, how could information be published about a horse on a current day, when there's so many variables that could make them not, perform at the performance that's written down on a piece of paper? But, as a human being, I guess I wanted to know. I wanted to know more than other people. I wanted to achieve. I was bada boom. I could be a smart guy. Because of the fact that I didn't have the education as a young person. I think I said I could be a smart guy this way. And it turned out to be a dumb move. It turned out, I was dumber. Instead of being smarter, it turned out that, as a horse player, you're just dumber and you're humbled. You're humbled 80, 85, 90% of the time. 10, 20% of the time you might do okay, but the gaps are too big. And then you're human. You go on tilt. You play when you shouldn't be playing. You chase. You go get bad beats. You gamble because you're bored. You gamble because that's all you do. That's because that's what you do. You gamble because you're addicted to gambling and you're addicted to horse racing information. And unfortunately, I couldn't survive out there anymore. I didn't want to swim another lap. I don't want to play another race. I don't want to handicap another card. Um, I just don't want to, because of the realization. The realization, that I'm not going to be one of the 15% of the people that win at the game. And I'm not having enough enjoyable horse racing experiences, which is why I even came in the game. It wasn't just the money, it was also to have enjoyable horse racing experiences. You know what I mean? If I'm going to go to the dance, if I'm going to go to the party, man, I want to go home, with someone. Maybe not all the time, but geez, come on. Are you kidding me? It's amazing that I went through it. I'm still amazed that I've even gone through it. And now I'm wiggling out. I'm getting out. Because I realize horse racing information is bullshit. And as a gambler wanting too much, I want more, and you just can't stop. It's no different than cocaine or heroin or any other addiction. You just feel like a god. You just can't stop. You can't stop. You can't even come close to stopping. But the last 2 years have been too brutal. I mean, I went down to the lowest place that I've ever been. In the sense of abuse to myself, self-hate, not feeling, like worthy stuff, bullshit, right? But, it's very important for me to make a paradigm change. I'm going home soon. God doesn't expect me to be who I was before. He expect, before I go home, there's an expectation in my mind. So I'm cool with that. And I also have expectations. I also have, where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How peaceful do I want my last days to be? How relaxed and comfortable. And that part I got down nice. I dance 6 hours a day. I meditate. Spend a lot of time in trying to not be in deep thought of anything. And convincing myself that it's over. So since it's over, there's nothing to sweat. There's nothing to be concerned about. There's nothing to try to achieve. Everything now is just whatever. Everything from like a felt sense. Everything from like, if I'm in the mood, maybe I'll do it. But I'm in control. No longer am I not in control. Humans love to be in control. I never gave a shit about it. But now I give a shit about it. I give a shit about it. And I don't want to be in control of anybody else. I just want to be in control of me. I just want to be in control of me. I just want to enjoy me. I try to, be involved with another person to try to bring sunshine to their life, and at the same time that would bring sunshine to me. But I walk in the room and it's so dark. I go to the person and she's so dark. There's no, the darkness is like concrete. There's no penetration. There's no possibility of a smile. There's, and I know that. I know what that is. And I want no part of that because I'm not there, and I never allowed myself to ever get that dark. That's really dark. I was kissed on my little white ass by God with his bubble lips, with an optimistic spirit, which I never could get that dark. My wife was dark like that. my wife had no feelings of, intimacy, no feelings of bada bing. So, when you see it once, you see it again. And getting back to what I was saying before is, so that's what I'm doing now. And I'm never gonna open up a racing form again. I'm never gonna handicap a race again. It's Tuesday, 7/26/2026. So, that's just something that I totally believe, that horse racing information is useless. And it was interesting. Yesterday, Gulfstream I think was running, and yeah, Monday Gulfstream was running. So, I tried that crystal clear clarity board and follow the money idea, just to get a rubber dub, so to speak. And and it was really interesting because I put together the crystal clear clarity board, and I'll show you that sometime. And basically what that is that you're putting the odds of the horses, where they belong, so you can see on a board. So like, for example, the 4 and the 9 were 30-1, so they were on the top of the board. And then the 2 was 25-1, so the 2 was right underneath them. And then there was 5 horses that were like, or 4 horses that were like in between 10-1 and 15-1. And then there was 4 horses, or no, actually 5 horses. No, 4, because there was 10 total, so 4 and 4 that were, where the public was going. And that's the crystal clear clarity board. So you got 4 horses around 7-2, 3-1, 5-2, maybe one's 9-5, or another 2-1. And then you got your, 3 layers up, because it's, 3-1. So then you got a 10-1. So that's, double, a little bit more than double. So they're a little bit up, and they're across. And that was 4 horses. So that was 8. And then you got the, actually, there might have been 3 there, and then there was the 2, which is 15, and then the 4 and the 9. So, not looking at horse racing information, what I learned was that is horse racing information. The crystal clear clarity board is horse racing information opinions in its totality. So, in what it's telling the public is that the 4 horses that are 3-1 and under are, have something in the racing form that tells them that they should be that. And then the next 4 horses have something, but not as much as those. And then the 2 is being dismissed, and the 4 and 9 are totally being dismissed. So, right off the bat, you know that you're not going to make any money with the 4 down on the bottom. You could make some money with the horses in the middle, and the odds didn't change much, which was phenomenal. There wasn't much movement in the race at all. And I also watched it with the doubles. The doubles were all over the place. I didn't understand that, and I'll get to know that better. And then, so this, I think the first thing that I want to talk about is the race you pick, the type of race you pick. And I think this was a 1.16 or like a 17 claimer, but it was a highly uncertain race. And that's the first thing you got. If you're gonna make an investment and try to get lucky and get paid, you have to take a race where the uncertainty is very, very high, where the field is at least 10 horses, because you need bumping, you need the favorites to get bumped, you need favorites to get knocked out of their rhythm, so they can't run the race that they're supposed to race, that's on the racing form. And then you got horses that the horse players are totally dismissing. Like, I think the 4 went off at 60 to 1, and the 9 went off at like 40 to 1, and the 2 went off at like 27 to 1. Um, and the focus of my focus, Bullseye, is not going to be where you are, because you're trying to get the winner for your pick threes, your pick fours, your pick fives, your daily doubles, and things like that. I'm just playing the race, and I'm just playing the dime super. So I let the bet make me. I let the race talk to me from what you guys have decided how good that racing form looks like. Including the trainers and now the owners and the jockeys, because they're making their bets too. So the total opinion is the crystal clear clarity board. It's all of those 10 horses as you see them. So for me, the most interesting horses are going to be the 4, 9, and the 2. As a gambler, you got to go contrarian to everybody else. So my contrarian moves are only playing the race. You guys are playing string bets and daily doubles and pick fives. You're just looking for the contender. I don't give a shit about the contenders. I'm not going to look at them. I'm not looking at any of the data. I'm just trying to get lucky, and I'm just trying to get paid. And I only need to hit, as the guy over at Shake Up says, 20% of my bets. So yesterday I played 4 bets. On Sunday I would have played 4 bets, and they were all losses. And now today I would have played just 1, and it would have been a big win. So I get what he's saying over there. Shake Up totally now after watching him for all these years. He uses horse racing information, but I'm not. I'm just making a crystal clear clarity board, where I know where I'm focusing, and that could change. Depending on the mojo, depending on how I see the fluctuations in money in doubles, and how you determine. Are there big swings in from the morning line? And this was again at Gulfstream, and I don't play Gulfstream. So I do better without the racing form on Gulfstream, because when I did play Gulfstream with the racing form, I used to say I don't know Gulfstream. Well, I don't have to know Gulfstream. I'm just looking at a board, and again, I'm just no ego. I don't have to know anything. I know what I know is that I need to get lucky, and I need to get paid. But I need to get lucky, and then I'll get paid. And it's just getting lucky. It's the only way to play, especially after 40 years, and especially after realizing that after 40 years, how useless the horse racing information is, especially today. With better computer systems, better this, better that, now you got to go somewhere else. So again, bullseye approach is no racing form, just playing the race, dime supers, and trying to get lucky. Again, not trying to exercise my ego and do a process. The key is what I'm seeing so far is that you need to, the selection of the races you play. You're not going to play any 6-horse race fields. You're not so. Everybody's going to be talking about the Whitney tomorrow. This weekend. It's a 5-horse field. Who gives a shit? It doesn't mean anything. That's not even a race of consideration. You want 10 horses, because you want to get lucky. Getting lucky, the variable is that the favorites, at least 2 of the favorites, don't show up and give your bombs a chance to do well. And the focal point is playing the longest shots on the board to play where you can win if they take 4th. Where if one of those 3 totally dismissed horses gets 4th, you win, and you win big. Especially if you press the bet and have it multiple times, because you're playing a dime super, and you're playing just the highly uncertain races, like races like maiden special weight, where people don't have information, where a lot of people pass it, where the uncertainty is the highest, and where it's communicated intent. Who's going to be the favorites. But then there's the other horse, the horse at 25-1 who could be second, the horse at 60-1 can be fourth, and the horse at 30-1 can be third. The win spot is for the big guys. It's for everybody else, for their pick threes, their pick fours, their ego-related decisions of pace, and so on and so on. If you're an old dude, or you're a guy who's been playing a long time and you don't have enjoyable horse racing experiences, this is the way. There's no better way than playing without horse racing information at all. All you need is the odds. The public will tell you all you need to know about the racing format, so who has the best percentage of winning at this race. It screams at you. Now, the bullseye approach gives you clarity, because you're not, all over the place with the racing form. You're not trying to figure out pace. You're not trying to figure out jockey moves. You're not trying to figure out trainer intent. You're not trying to figure out who's hot and who's not hot. The thousands and hundreds of variables that you got to go through when you do it with the crystal clear clarity board. Basically, I'm handicapping you. This is what you're saying is going to happen. And I say, okay, let me see it. Okay, so these are the four contenders you have. These are the three horses that look like they're gonna, they look good, but not as good as those four. And these are the three horses that you're totally dismissing, doesn't have a chance in hell. You went through them when you handicapped in a matter of like, there's no way this horse can do anything. And the contrarian way of doing things is to go there. Now you're going to lose 80% of the time because you didn't get lucky. But if you can capitalize on two of those times, you'll still be up. That's what I understood from the way most professionals out there. That seems to be the nugget, the center. And I agree with it now. I understand it completely. To awaken to doing what you do, and to doing that kung fu perfect, that's the real joy. The joy is that what is your thing as a player? What is your thing? And how can you make that thing work for you? Right off the bat, it's going to work for me because I finally have clarity, absence ego. I don't have to know anymore. I don't have to think I know anymore, and be totally humbled and say it could have been this, it could have been that, and play more and more and more and more. No. Mindless simplicity. The beautiful thing about being an old dude is you master simplicity, patience, and I have a guru in being determined. That's without a fact. That's without a doubt. That's a fact. But it's so important that to get to a point where your movements in your mind are calm. Your movements in your mind are precise. Precise. What is the public saying about the crystal clear clarity board? And then what is my gut, my felt sense, as Pastor Wire guy says. He relies on that. I totally do too. My felt sense. You let the bet make you. No matter what, you let the bet make you. The late Mike Pizzola, he termed that. He also termed, if you're gonna make a bet, you have to be firm about it. If you're gonna pass, pass. If you're gonna play, play. But don't wobble. With the crystal clear clarity, but there's no wobbling, there's no nothing, because you're not Humpty Dumpty. You're just you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're Arnold Schwarzenegger strong, because you've simplified it to a point where everything is easy and worry free. That's unheard of in our game. That's unheard of. That's where the gold is. The gold is in getting your mofo Joe to a rhythm that it's perfect. What is perfection? Not having to make a bet, because you're letting the bet make you. Not being addicted to reading a racing form, or thoroughgraph sheets, or Ragusson sheets, or time form, and all that fucking bullshit for hours and hours to mentally jerk off, till you know, and then you get humbled and you don't know. What the fuck? That's the rubber band. What the fuck just happened? I know. It's all gone. Again, that's all gone. Holy shit, could you imagine how that feels? Could you imagine the amount of anxiety you're not going to have to deal with on a regular basis anymore? Every day, 5 days a week, 9 to 10 hours a day. The anxiety is like 10% versus 150. 10%, 20% versus 150. For 10 hours, you're at 150, 10% of the time. Now, no anxiety. A simple approach. All kinds of restrictions, all kinds of fences to stay away from being out of control, from staying away from playing thousands of races that you shouldn't play, for staying away from, playing when you're bored. Staying away because that's what I do. No, take a day off. No, enjoy your family. Enjoy your kids. Or you're not going to have them when you're my age. Or you're not going to be part of their lives when you're at my age. And you're probably going to get divorced. And she's probably with somebody else. Because you're with the horses. You're reading a racing form. You're looking at thoroughgraph sheets. You're looking at Ragusson sheets. You're looking at tape after tape after tape. You're analyzing a speed. You're making an odds board. You're watching races for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. When the fuck are you with your family? When the fuck are you? Never. Because you're addicted to, playing the races and doing your mojo. I retired and I thought it was going to be unbelievable to be, to be able to play anytime, no. Out of balance. You get out of balance. You go ba boo boo. Ba boo boo. So this is an introduction to energized horse player, an energized horse player who finally takes back their life after 40 years. Just to share something with you if you're going through that. Anybody ever wants to bullshit with me or whatever, I'm at 475-206-6569. Good night now. Bye.